light this flame to affirm the light of truth and knowledge, the one of love and community, and the fire of hope and commitment.
Where music is language, reclaiming ourselves in nature. Spiders live in a world that is foreign to us. Spiders are mostly blind, but their webs are exquisitely sensitive to vibrations which they detect through their legs and body. The difference in the length and tensions of each silken strand of the spider's web emits a different frequency when disturbed by outside influences. While spiders are blind, they are fully attuned to what is going on around them through their webs. The web can be viewed as an extension of the spider's body. Audiovisual methods have captured the reverberation between spiders and their webs that we hear as music, giving us a glimpse of what it might feel like to be a spider. When you listen to the audio, you dive inside the spider's web. Being able to hear what's going on between the spider and their web allows us to perceive the world as spiders view it. Spiders in their webs can help us observe the dimly perceived web of life of all creatures, large and small. A deeper dive into this Earth's rich web of life is best observed in ecologically intact areas that have been spared from the urban and industrial agricultural activities. Appreciation of the richness of life on Earth is urgently needed and requires us to reclaim the wonders of ourselves in the context of nature. Some wonders show up around us in gardens and untamed spaces. Currently, only 3% of the Earth contains the same fauna and flora that existed before major human impacts occurred in pre-industrial times 500 years ago. While 3% of the Earth's land is ecologically intact, only about 10% of ecologically intact sites are located in environmentally protected parks. The other 90% of the ecologically intact sites, including parts of the Sahara, Amazon, and northern Canada, are within territories managed by indigenous communities. So indigenous communities play a very important role in maintaining ecological integrity. This provides a glimpse into the idea that ecologically intact areas are intertwined with issues of social justice that indigenous people seek. There are many amazing environmental organizations. The Friends of the Earth hold a special place for us. Our own Avis Moore was a founding member of Friends of the Earth in 1969. As a board chairwoman of Friends of the Earth, Avis helped plan the first Earth Day in 1970. Gratitude to Avis for her remarkable and continuing contributions to the cause of justice for our Earth's web of life.
Lying in my bed tonight, looking out through my eyelids. How the world gets so screwed up. Was it something that I did? I get up and pace the floor. What can I do to make a difference? Maybe I should go back to bed now. I can't change the world tonight, because I'm only one, but still I am one. It may not seem like much, but any little thing can start a ripple in this great big pond. Looking through the prophet's veil, I see fossils of ancient rivers. How the waters all dry up. Could it be I'm the killer? My head's spinning round and round. What can I do to make a difference? Maybe I should just give up now. I don't know how to make this right, because I'm only one, but still I am one. It may not seem like much, but any little thing can start a ripple in this great big pond. Celebrities and senators play up how we are different, using hate to their own ends. Sometimes I catch myself listening. Well, can't they see that love trumps fear? What can I do to make a difference? Maybe I should just fit in now. I don't know how to fight this fight, because I'm only one, but still I am one. And it may not seem like much, but any little thing can start a ripple. I am only one, but still I am one. And it may not seem
Spring is here, and there is so much to enjoy here on the earth. The azaleas are almost gone, yes, and how bright they were. But the star jasmine is perking up, setting blooms, wafting its magical, intoxicating aroma. The care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, our most pleasing responsibility. To cherish what remains of it and to foster its renewal is our only hope, said Wendell Berry. Here, near Earth Day, as we consider our responsibilities to our earth, please note that the antithesis of a star jasmine resides just upriver. What do I mean, you may ask? Well, 7 or 8 years ago, 2 environmentalists and I drove the West Bank route from Baton Rouge to New Orleans. We were appalled, upset, sickened by the interconnected web of chemical plants and small towns populated by people of color. If you have never taken that ride, do so. It's right out there. If you can, do it soon. Distress over Cancer Alley, Death Alley, as the locals say, has drifted all the way to the United Nations. On March 2 of this year, the UN Human Rights Council made a statement on Cancer Alley. It urged no additional petrochemical plants, and it calls for the United States and St. James Parish to recognize and pay reparations for the centuries of harm to Afro-descendants rooted in slavery and colonialism. To date, though, Louisiana has followed an old, familiar Louisiana approach. Fill the riverbank with plants, let the wind blow as it may. However, there is a local group, actually a consortium of local groups, committed to the protection of the earth, doing this most pleasing responsibility of taking care of our planet. The Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition, GNO-ICC, recently released a declaration that highlights this UN statement. The GNO-ICC calls for action on these items: an end to all tax incentives that encourage petrochemical corporations to come to Louisiana. Petrochemical corporations should be required to clean the air, water, and soil that have sickened and killed so many who reside near their plants. Petrochemical corporations should follow through with tough public health laws, regulations, etc. A statewide commission should establish the standards and processes for reparations, and there should be a move to a working and cooperative relationship between the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality, Louisiana Department of Health, and GNOCC and environmentalists, paving the way for a better earth right here in Louisiana. There is, at this time, an effort to bring another Formosa plastics plant, to Louisiana. Do you want another plastics plant upriver? Wasn't one huge batch of nurdles enough? How many years will it take before we, as Wendell Berry said, step up to our most pleasing responsibility of really and truly taking care of the earth? My ask of you is to go to the GNOICC.org website, read the petition, then sign it. I'm sure you all know GNO, Greater New Orleans, followed by Interfaith Climate Coalition, ICC. The link on that page is to advocacy. It's on the right side of the page, just a little ways down. The advocacy section has the GNO ICC statement on the UN as the second item. Your signature is a first step in making a southern Louisiana move toward beginning this process of taking care of our earth. It's just a beginning. After that, it's up to you. It's up to all of us.
Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online at ccuunola.org/stewardship or by text at 504-370-2659. Text the word give. And you can also send a check to CCUU at 6690 Fleur-de-Lis Drive, New Orleans, Louisiana, 70124. Check your chat box for these ways to give, and we thank you.
I am boy, I am man, the face of the changing land, and I have been your constant guide from your caves on the mountainside. We have walked hand in hand. Everywhere that I have been, my passing turns the gray to green. The birds sing to the dawn, and the land has awoken. And now my lady lays with me. Our love weaves its tapestry, eternal threads unbroken. I am lover, I am father, I am hornet, God and King. I'm the life in all of nature that is reborn every spring. Call of stag and cry of eagle. I am child of antlered crown and standing stone. The air is cold, the sky is gray. Where am I this winter's day? Bones of trees, fallen leaves, the time of the winter queen. But through the wind and snow and rain, know that a part of me remains. The holly stands evergreen. I am lover, I am father, I am horned God and King. I'm the life in all of nature that is reborn every spring. Call of stag and cry of eagle. I am child of barley corn, and I am the antlered crown and standing stone. Standing stone.
Beloved community, I, as many of you know, am just finishing up my first year as a world geography teacher at New Harmony High School. It has been an incredibly challenging year and very rewarding as well. And one thing that's been rewarding about it has been the opportunity to teach so many of my students about the indigenous coastal communities of Louisiana, as well as of my friends who are living and working out in Cancer Alley. It's caused me to reflect on quite a lot, including the very nature of this word, indigenous. Indigenous is such a common word in social justice spaces, and it's such an easy word to pass by without thinking deeply about what it means or even about its limitations. To be indigenous to a place means to be from a place. And yet the indigenous history of coastal Louisiana is relatively recent, from about the early 1800s. And it was defined in very large part by Native communities who were escaping the terrible destiny of the Trail of Tears by pushing southward and being pushed onto these frankly inhospitable lands right on the edge of the earth, and learning to, or really being forced to, thrive in those coastal lands. And meanwhile, the land that they had previously called home was now repurposed as plantations, on which people who were indigenous to another land very far away across the ocean were now being forced to work as slaves. And on those plantations where people worked as slaves, when the so-called emancipation happened, many people did not go far. They rooted themselves in Louisiana, and they worked their own land. They started their own autonomous communities, and they raised their children in what was truly an idyllic countryside until the gas plants moved in and until the petrochemical companies moved in. And in many cases, taking these little communities like Mossville and Kelowna, which are such an important part of our national story, and squeezing them into extinction. And I say this because I think it's important to acknowledge that ever since the first white settlers arrived in Louisiana, and through the rise of slavery and the forced migrations associated with that slavery, and through the rise of the oil and gas industry and the disappearance of coastal and river parish towns associated with that industry, the upheaval for people of color in the great state of Louisiana has been constant. And I want to finish by saying this. which is that if you, like me, are a descendant of this terrible and shameful legacy of white settlers, and if you're a beneficiary of that legacy, that guilt can overwhelm you and it can depress you. And all I can really say in response to that is that the cure for depression is action. And we can fight with our dollars by withholding them from polluting and extracting industries that destroy our coast, and by giving our dollars to those who are fighting to preserve the coast. We can fight with our voices by demanding that our elected officials are held accountable to the people who live in Cancer Alley communities and protect them from further exploitation. In short, we have an opportunity to be part of the first generation that authentically reckons with this legacy and takes steps towards its atonement. And that can be a very optimistic and powerful feeling.
Now is our sacred time for joys and sorrows. As you are willing and able, please share any joys that have come up for you this week, this month, this year. We want to celebrate with you. And also, please know that this is the space to share any sorrows that are weighing heavily on your heart. Know that we as a community are here for you as well in your sorrows. So as you are willing and able, please put your joys and sorrows in our chat box. And once our musical moment is completed, I will read these aloud and we will light candles together as a community.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Thank you so very much for sharing our joys and sorrows. At this time, I will be reading aloud our joys and sorrows from the chat box, and our wonderful Cynthia Ramirez will be lighting candles. Howard Milkey asks that we please hold a silent prayer for my longtime neighbor and friend Barbara, who is seriously ill in the hospital and saying goodbye to her 26 grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We send a candle of love and care and honor for a life built with so much love and family. Marilyn Malone lets us know to include our joys and sorrows, so thank you. I'm going to light a candle of gratitude for that, for all that Marilyn and Alan have done, from our greeting during the service to our coffee hours to help keep us together as a community. We are grateful to you. Deb writes that our joy is that we are moving to NOLA this week and look forward to joining this beautiful community. Gary and Deb Lloyd. We so look forward to having you here, and welcome. Sally writes that my joy is that Elizabeth Jenkins is healing without having to have any back surgery. My sorrow is that another friend, Donna Brackbill, was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. Sally, we share your joy for our healing member of our community, Lizzie Jenkins, and also we lift up your sorrow. We love and care for you, and we light this candle for Donna. Linda writes that my granddaughter, aged 4, requested violin lessons. Her first lesson was fun, she said. Here is to more music and beauty in the world. That is wonderful. Shirley and Jim write, living with sorrow for my sister and her family and their struggles with the loss of a 31-year-old son, brother to COVID. Sending you so much love and lighting a candle in their honor. Vera and Jim write of gratitude for the challenge in this marvelous service today. Yes, we are an amazing community, and I so appreciate the ways in which we support and challenge each other in a challenging and beautiful world. Adrian writes, overjoyed and excited to be seeing my father for the first time in over a year and this upcoming Wednesday. Moreover, he's been living with a serious illness for over 5 years, and recent evidence shows that he may be more or less in the clear. My mom, who I just saw recently, will be there too. We light a candle for Eric and for Adrian and for his mother Marjorie and for our whole family. Kat Vieira writes that my joy is that my mom and sister from North Carolina were finally able to come visit and meet my baby. This is a symbol. I love this. My sorrow is for the time we lost due to the pandemic that we could have spent together. Yes, that's important too. With our joys, there will also be in the coming weeks and months sorrows for some of the time that we were not able to spend together. Thank you for lifting that up. In both a joy and a sorrow, I also want to lift up the verdict this week in the Derek Chauvin case, that justice was done and that there is so much more to do, that there continued to be shootings of unarmed Black people even this week, and that we have work to do and learnings to do as a people, as a faith community. And I look forward, as hard as they may be, for these hard and important conversations and this hard and important work. This is a space where we can do this bravely, boldly, and with vulnerability. So I have one more candle of gratitude for all the joys and sorrows that have been shared together in this time. We thank you for your vulnerability and for your care and for all those joys that are just bubbling up. Please know that we share in your joy. And when you are ready to share with us, we are here. And also for all the sorrows that feel too heavy at this time, to even be able to lift up in our community. We understand, we love you, and when you are ready, we are here. Thank you for our time of joys and sorrows. And so before our next reading, I'm going to ask our wonderful religious education director, Cynthia, to take my iPad out of the sanctuary. This is technology. We're learning about sacred iPads. It had a bit of an echo, so we want to make sure we're able to have that. But thank you so much. This is, I suppose, some gratitude for the human beings and the people that are behind this worship in so many ways, day in and day out, as well as for the technology that sometimes is intimidating and scary, but has actually gotten us through this connection. So with that, our final reading today before our final reflection is called Sojourns in the Parallel World by Denise Levertov. We live our lives of human passions, cruelties, dreams, concepts, crimes, and the exercise of virtue. In and beside a world devoid of our preoccupations, free from apprehension, though affected certainly by our actions. A world parallel to our own, though overlapping. We call it nature, only reluctantly admitting to ourselves to be nature too. Whenever we lose track of our own obsessions, our self-concerns, because we drift for a minute, an hour even, of pure, almost pure response to the insouciant life, cloud, bird, fox, the flow of light, the dancing pilgrimage of water, vast stillness of spellbound ephemerae on a lit window pane, animal voices, mineral hum, wind conversing with rain, ocean with rock, stuttering of fire to coal, then something tethered in us, hobbled like a donkey on its patch of gnawed grass and thistle, breaks free. No one discovers just where we've been when we're caught up again into our own sphere, where we must return indeed to evolve our destinies. But we have changed a little. So on a recent walk around my neighborhood, down a street I've been hundreds of times before, especially in this pandemic, I found myself suddenly oriented anew. For in front of me stood our giant neighborhood peacock, Archie, showing off, flashing feathers, much like the feathers on my stole here today. And a tree overhanging the sidewalk also jittered an overeager squirrel. A crow perched on the telephone wire to my right. And up ahead, I heard pet goats bleating. B-L-E-A-T-I-N-G. I stood there, contemplating my next move, because suddenly the world wasn't oriented to me. And perhaps for the first time in my life, I wanted to diminish myself, walk more softly, be a part of this animal tableau rather than an intrusion in it. And also my human nature became a bit comical. The heavy footfall of my motorcycle boots in particular became less a sign of cool confidence and more an accidental aggression. I was frightened to move, not because I feared my fellow animals, but instead I feared breaking the spell that had been cast. It was that perfect kind of spring day in New Orleans, not as much seen as felt, brisk, beautiful, fleeting. I had drifted, as Denise Levertov wrote in our poem today, into nature. That insouciant life, Cloud, bird, fox, the flow of light, the dancing pilgrimage of water, vast stillness of spellbound ephemerae on a lit window pane, animal voices, mineral hum. Like the sound webs from Howard's reflection, I was suddenly intimately interwoven. I couldn't bear to break that spell. To onlookers, I must have been a sight, tiptoeing, literally, slowly, head pivoting side to side to take in animals and plants and sunlight, to take in me even, a part of something infinitely smaller and yet infinitely larger. The interconnected web that we Unitarian Universalists affirm felt suddenly not as much of a principle I try to live up to, but a metaphysical orientation that I was living into. And then I returned home. That drift, that sudden awareness of self as integrated into the natural world, dissipated. And later that night, I killed a roach. So I'm allergic to them, weirdly. And we all know that if you let a Louisiana roach run free in your home, you're going to soon have a roach militia. But also, I'd made a choice. I decided that I was head of my domain. I wouldn't have nature interfering too much into my world. On this Earth Day service, I think of those choices we make and the realizations we have day to day, moment to moment. One moment tiptoeing on boots to not disturb a bird. The next, using that same boot to squash a cockroach. Of course, nature, to quote William Bly's tiger, has its own fearful symmetry. A predatory streak. One of those birds may well have snatched the cockroach if it stepped outside my door. But in the natural world, nature takes what it needs and returns something too. Nutrients, sustenance. Relationships, even dangerous ones, and reciprocity are its foundation. So much of our human relationship with nature is bound up in our comfort and our convenience over and above interdependence, from what we eat to what we wear to what we drive. Well, maybe not for all of us humans. Jainism as a religion came about thousands of years ago, around the same time as Buddhism. Both religions are still practiced today and are similar in perspectives. However, in Jainism, animals, including human beings and plants, have souls. And each of these souls is of equal value. They should all be treated with respect and compassion. Not only are Jains vegetarians, but they live in such a way as to minimize their use of Earth's resources, living nomadic lifestyles, actively considering how to do the least harm. When they sweep their floors, for example, they sweep so as not to harm even the smallest insect. To some early Buddhist commentators, that last action about sweeping went too far. Jains were mocked for their ascetic lifestyles. But what is more absurd? Working to preserve the life of an insect, or as human beings, actively working against our own survival by destroying the interconnected web all around us? As Reverend Jim and Alicia reminded us, we humans have a special knack for seemingly destroying ourselves along with much of the rest of the interconnected web. From new chemical plants turning life-giving water to poison, to the social poison that is racism, blinding us to important relationships with other people and ourselves. So I'm going to admit it on this Earth Day, even to one of its founders in our congregation. I'm an imperfect environmentalist. From my car, to my boots, to the meat I eat. I will not convert to Jainism. My drifts to nature will come and go. My boots are made for walking, i.e., I have pretty heavy footfalls. But I also continue to take steps from meatless Mondays to biking more to legislative advocacy challenging the powerful Louisiana oil and gas industry. And the more small steps I take each year, each day, making decisions, the less overwhelmed I become about the enormity of our task ahead. And the more I start to gain faith that all of us can orient ourselves anew to nature and ways of living and being. That we can make substantive changes in our lives that will lessen our negative impact on this one world that we live in. And that we also demand larger changes from industries that do the most damage to our earth. I have faith that we will collectively find ways to better be a part of this interconnected web. For we have nothing to lose by considering and changing everything from petrochemical pollution to the squashing of a bug. And we have only the world to gain. Amen. Our benediction today is from the wonderful Denise Lervitoff from our poem that we read. Let us take these small moments of discoveries into the weeks and months ahead as we continue to consider who we are in community, in this larger world, in nature. No one discovers just where we've been when we're caught up again into our own sphere, where we must return indeed to evolve our destinies. But we have changed a little. Let us move forward in change and love. We love you. We cannot wait to see you virtually again, and for some of us in person in late May. Now is our time for our wonderful coffee hour. Thank you for being with us, and we will see you next week.